What do you see when you're in the dark?
Hello and welcome to Buried Stories. I'm Jeff Mercurio. With me, Wendell Brown. Wendell, how are you this evening?
Doing great tonight, Jeff. How are you today?
Good. Um, Before we get the show started, I believe there's happy birthdays to be going out to everybody. So happy birthday to all the Marines and happy birthday being a Marine, Wendell.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, tonight's show, we talked last week. A question was brought up of if you're on death row and you had your last meal wish, and we went around and talked about that. So tonight we're going to talk about prison and what it's like to be a prison guard, and some questions about what goes on in there, and then we'll go from there. And tonight we got Will. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we have all kind of questions about prison stories and things that general public questions on why this happens and why this happens and how can this happen and things. So I know we're gonna pick your brain at some point, but if to begin with, c- tell us a little bit about how you got into it, into uh, the prison system and what it was like and what was rewarding to you and what was not so much kind of thing.
My wife and I moved back from Texas to our current state uh, about 35 years ago. And I was teaching in Texas. And when we moved back to the state, they had a reduction in force, a politic thing. Um, and so jobs were scarce, and prison jobs were available. So I got into the prison system back in early 90s, and just recently retired. And I've worked my way through the prison system in several um, positions. I was the last one I was at was a work crew boss, and I did transportation where I transported uh, offenders throughout the state. And I've been a case manager and a correctional officer and a recreation leader. And it's been very challenging. And uh, being able to retire a little bit early, it was part of the benefits.
What
But
was the level of prisoners that you encountered over the years? Was it minor crimes or what is it, minor, medium, and serious or something?
the last facility that was a level one, and those usually it's stair step. Um, it depends on how much time you have left on your sentence. And so if you have like less than 5 years on your sentence, you were a lower level. If you had several years, you were a higher level. You were level 4, which is maximum, and level 1 it would be a minimal. And I worked at all levels at one time or another.
Is there a transition one too that's not a 1 through 4 or whatever level they go to? Is there, like, when somebody's going to get out and you're trying to transition them from the
That would be work release, and it'd be a like reentry, um, and usually
that
that's
that's it, reentry facilities,
uh,
right?
yes.
Okay.
And once you are eligible, you would go to a work release or a reentry facility.
Will, walk us through what a day is like in maximum security.
You would start your day off with checking in with the supervisors, and then you would go down to the facility, and then you would exchange information with the outgoing officers and keys. If there was any keys involved, you would hand over. We had a chit system, and you would hand over your identification chits to receive keys or any other tools you would need, radios, handgun, restraint keys. There's different, depends on what area you're in. You'd have different tools you would receive. And then they have a logbook and you check over what happened during their shift. And then you would do a count. It'd be usually a formal count on shift change. And you walk through and you count every individual. You count the flesh, make sure that that person is alive and breathing. And sometimes when you're walking through, you ask them how they're doing and if there's anything that they may need. And then once you did a formal count, then you would relieve the officer. And while you're doing the count, you're also checking the facility. You're kind of looking at the condition. If there's trash or things that are abnormal, and it's for your safety, their safety, and the facility security. Then once you do your count, then you would start your log, write down everything that was communicated to you, and the officers that you're relieving, your supervisors, so that you would know who to call if there was any issues. Then you would do your walkthroughs. It depends on what area you're in. If you're in like a suicidal area, it's like you're constant. There's usually someone there if it's suicidal, but
Right.
you at least every 15 minutes in a high security, you'd have to walk through and document what the prisoners are doing, like every 15 minutes. Usually, and then from there it's like 20 or 30 minutes. Each one sometimes have a different time of supervision. And a lot of times it's based on maybe if they're on a psych watch, and then it's progressed from there. It's maybe a guy has had some issues going on, and a psychiatrist came in and said, "Yeah, we got to keep a close eye on this guy," and they'd have him on a constant watch, and then they'll move it to 15-minute watch, and then maybe a 30-minute watch until But usually 30-minute is you're always walking at least every 30 minutes through the range and facility. And then you got to make sure you got your food count for the food services and call them up and let them know, hey, we're going to need 30 meals or whatever. Or if they have a diet, we have a couple diet trays or a kosher tray. Each one might have their own different kind of food services needs. And then you would, if they have phone calls that day, then you would go around and ask them if they need any phone calls. And if they need a phone call, you would put them down. And then when you're ready to have supervise the phone call, you'd go down to the cell, you'd restrain them for your safety and their safety, and then you walk them to the phones. They make their phone call, and then after done, you walk them back and secure the area. Same thing with recreation. They have individual recreation for an hour a day, unless it's been modified by medical or psych department. And then you would put the restraints on them, full trip gear, which would be leg restraints, hand restraints, belly restraints, and walk them to like a rec area. And then they would once you get to the rec area, you take the restraints off so they could do their exercises, play usually they have a basketball hoop, um, or just be able to. It'd be somewhere outside where they could look up at the sky and they do their exercises, and then after the rec time is up, then you'd go put the restraints back on them, escort them back to their cell, and um, and you do them like one at a time. Then during meal times, you usually have to make the trays for the inmates or in, they've been called several different things throughout the years. They were
Right.
residents, convict, inmate, and offenders. It depends on the facility or the uh, the politics. But I think recently they went back to offenders and they have their
Right.
numbers. They had a 6-digit number. At one time it was 4, and then the population got so much
Wow.
they had to go to a 6-digit number. But then after you put the food into trays, then you deliver one by one. Of course, you'd have to do everything according to the food services. You'd have to put a mask on and a hairnet and your gloves, and you'd have to do everything that would be required to serve food. And then
Right.
once you got your trays, you deliver them one by one, and then you'd make sure that they didn't have any food left in their cell after a certain amount of time because you can only have food so long after you serve it because of the bacteria and the cleaning uh, procedures. We want to keep everything safe and keep the animals out. Um,
What time they get up and go to bed, Will?
well, they're just in their cells all day. It's like 23 hours a day. They're pretty much in their cells on a maximum security. Now, in general population, they get up usually about 5:30. They turn the lights on and let them know that the the food services will be open in 30 minutes. And then they would line up to go to food services. And then they'd come back from food services, and then they'd have to have their beds made before they go to any kind of assignment or do any kind of jobs. Uh, and then anytime there's any kind of movement, you'd have a formal count. So yeah, you're constantly counting. You count probably eight probably 8 times, as close to 8 times a shift, whether it's formal or informal. You need to pretty much know uh, your population underneath your supervision at all times.
Is it
And
is it difficult to, besides the difficulties of the job, is it difficult to restrict the freedom of another human being? I mean, and not become compassionate and I mean, I imagine you had to keep your discipline. You had to keep poking yourself to keep your discipline because you probably heard every story in the world.
yeah, well, by policy, yeah, there's no fraternizing. So you definitely have to keep your distance. But that we're all human and it happens. It's it's
Mhm.
it's sad. It happens more than not. But you're not supposed to have if you're sitting there talking to a guy for more than 15 minutes, you in your head you need to back away, because you're not. First of all, you're not doing your job supervising because you got all these other people that you're supposed to be uh, watching and make sure that they're not doing things that are harmful to themselves or others.
Mhm.
But
What is the guards to inmate ratio during a
oh
shift?
oh Lord, uh, I started back in the early '90s, and it was about maybe 30 to 1.
Oof. Yeah.
And then it is my last tour at a facility. It was like 200 to 1.
Oh my goodness.
You were like watching 2 dorms with 100 inmates. It's on both sides of you.
Right.
And recreation, when I started in recreation uh, in the mid-90s, they used to have one rec staff for every 50 offenders and at least one officer. Well, they stopped that. Laws changed, and we could have like 400 offenders out in a rec area, with maybe 2 officers,
Wow.
and yeah, so it
So
was kind
you're
of
screwed on a revolt. It-
Yeah.
eh, well, I mean, if you got them all in one place, but
Right.
I would
well,
imagine it would be difficult to. I know in the Marine Corps they called us chasers, where if you guys were in my unit and you got a foul with the law and had to go to the brig or had to go to court, then your fellow Marines in your unit, they would basically deputize them as chasers, and they would chase you to court. They would escort you to court or to the brig or get you out of the brig, take you to court, back to the brig, that kind of thing. And I did that a couple times, and it's interesting, but to do it every day, I take my hat off to you. I know it has to be a challenge because we are all human, and even though you could take the mindfulness that they're all guilty or they wouldn't be there, and that's that. But I'm sure you've heard some sad stories and things over the years, um, and we'll get into that if you have
yeah.
some unique stories and things. But yeah, I know that's got to be tough duty.
I know there was one time, the offender said that, I'm innocent, and we all like, yeah, all right, everybody's innocent. But he was released, after 19 years. They
Hmm.
found DNA evidence that proved that he had nothing to do with the case. And the state had to
How's that
pay
make
him.
you feel? You having to hold him?
Well, it's it,
Nothing you could do about it.
I was just doing, yeah, I wasn't really affected. I was just doing my
Yeah,
job.
Right.
yeah.
But I I treated all the population with respect and human dignity, and that's if you do that, they're going to respect you, and you usually don't have any problems unless you usually got some real bad troublemakers or some real bad mental um, offenders.
Did you
Yeah,
guys have the like 4 or 5 the team that in an emergency when somebody was just freaking out?
yeah,
There, I mean, we had it in the Marine Corps in the brig, and they were 5 of the biggest human beings I've ever seen. And I
Wow.
would see them in the gym, and I don't have much of a neck anymore, but these guys didn't have any neck at all. They were the biggest human beings I've ever seen, and they were prison guards at the brig. That was their duty in the Marine Corps. That was their job, and man, when they rushed, and they didn't take any mercy on anything. And they had to just get rid of whatever situation was going on. And but I was wondering if you guys had that now, or did the politics,
no,
you know,
uh,
do you
they
have to
have
talk them out?
eh, they're first responders, and with the staffing shortage, sometimes they have to leave their site, uh, which is dangerous. But when you get your assignment, they'll usually tell you that you're a first responders, and if you have a disturbance, you go
Hmm.
to a meeting area, and then the supervisor will give you assignments and weapons to
I
go
got you.
in,
Yeah.
and then they would go to the site that is first responders are needed.
So they get kind of paged and then go running, right?
Yeah. Now, when I started, they didn't have the first responders. It was just if you did not have an assignment, if you were a floater in the dorm, is anybody available would go to the site where there'd be a signal 1010 or emergency. Uh, and sometimes, you have, it's just a show of force. You might have 20 officers come running in the door to break up a fight.
Have you seen the
Uh,
Green Mile?
oh yeah.
Was it
The,
accurate?
um, there's a lot there that it was accurate. Yeah. Um, it's funny, that they used the mouse for part of their show.
Yeah.
Uh, one incident that really got me. It was about this time of year. It was in the fall, and the mice were moving inside, and with inmates leaving food out and stuff. Sometimes you can get a lot of mice in your unit. And one time I was at the desk and sit down, and uh, shortly after I sit down, felt something in my leg, and I started hitting it, and I heard a squeak, and I jumped up, and I pulled off my trousers, and my supervisor goes, "What's going on?" I said, "There's a mouse in my pants," and he laughed so hard he didn't know what to think. But and then we had inmates that would get the mice off the sticky pads
Yeah.
and would keep them and as pets and train them and try to do it underground. Try
Right.
and we would do our searches, and we this guy had a peanut butter jar one time, and we look inside things that aren't labeled. He had his ace bandage all wrapped around his peanut butter jar, and so I start to take off the lid, and he goes, "You don't want to do that." And I go, "Why? Is drugs? What you got? What you?" And he goes, "Well, if I tell you, will I get in trouble?" I said, "It depends on what it is." I said, "Yeah, if it's something illegal, you're going to the hole." And he says, "Well, I got a pet mouse in there," and he had more than one. He had three pet mice. Three
No.
of the mice he pulled off the sticky trap, and
Oh,
and
wow.
so he
Yeah.
he'd been keeping it in his cell and training it, and that was way before Green Mile came out.
Yeah.
Right.
He was feeding them from his commissary and feeding them off his tray, and he just he wanted to hurt me when I told him I got to put him outside because
Oh,
uh, those
they
were his
become
pets.
they become the pets and companions and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So I said, "Yeah, I can't let you keep these. This is unsanitary." As I took them out and let them go out in front of the building. So it was
You
that was
said it was, you mentioned it was challenging. What was some of your biggest challenges? You said
sometimes they
the politics or something is what I took. Was it?
uh yeah there there's a lot of times you gotta sometimes you gotta think, and sometimes you don't make the right decisions. Um at one time the supervisor came into a medical unit, and the guy was coming in for medical services, and he didn't like the supervisor, and so he said, I'm refusing medical," and they had the right to do that. Well, the supervisor told me, he goes, "If he refuses medical because I'm here, you put handcuffs on him and take him to detention unit." Well, I knew this offender had ports in his arm for medical procedures, and you can't put hard restraints on. And so he said, "Well, I'm not going on. I'm not going on." And the supervisor goes, "Lock him up." And so I didn't put hard restraints on him because I was like, I know if I put hard restraints on him, I'm going to be dealing with this guy in court because there, medical, he has a soft restraint title. He can't have hard restraints on because of the medical port. And so I got on the radio and called for an officer to bring soft restraints. Well, the supervisor, kind of told me I should have put restraints on him, and he didn't want to talk to me. And so it kind of,
Yeah.
um, and I well, I saved him from legal issues, and I saved myself from legal issues. But
Right.
the thing, it was taken care of. But
Right.
yeah, you just
Frustrating.
at that time I knew what was going on. I knew the medical conditions, which the supervisor didn't.
Will, as far as phone calls are concerned, are those phone calls, are they listened to? Are they
Oh,
monitored?
absolutely,
Okay.
100%, 100%. They're recorded and monitored, and they have go back to them if there's any issues. They have stopped a lot of drugs coming in. They've stopped a lot of staff in illegal activities. Had gate closures because of phone calls. Yeah, they're 100%. They're monitored, and you have staff, which their internal affairs that are always following up on the tapes.
And is there a lot of gang affiliations in prisons?
Yes, there have been. It's a little bit less because if they are found to be affiliated with a disruptive group, they're they get more time. They either don't admit to it or they try to disinvolve themselves into disruptive groups.
Now that brings me to the question of tattoos. Now they're not supposed to have anything in prison, and yet some guys go in with maybe one or two and they come out tatted from neck to to all the way down their torso. So how do they get this equipment, or how are prison tattoos how do they do that?
It is a big issue, and it's you got your tattoo artists that make a lot. That's how they make their profits inside the prison. Now, the
Well, how is that
sometimes
transaction done? How do they make profits? What are you talking about?
they get commissary, and they get paid for job assignments, and so uh, usually back in the day when they had cigarette smokes, which it used to be the Class A cigarettes, were that was the money. Now it's like Ramon noodles, uh,
Yeah.
commissary items,
Bartering.
so
They're bartering with stuff.
absolutely bartering.
Okay.
But the tattoo ink can be made, uh, and you know we we have found it several times, and it's a process. But uh, they will make a take a Coke can or a hard surface, and they used to have matches. It was easier when they had cigarettes and matches, but now they don't have matches, but they have batteries that they make igniting how do I say
They
things
start a
like,
fire.
Yeah.
well, they start fire. They'll like tear parts of their t-shirts up and make wicks, and they used to use baby oil, and they got rid of baby oil for part of that reason, and then they started with the hand sanitizer, and they use the hand sanitizer or the baby oil as one a inflammate the to keep the fire going to make how do I want to say the soot, and then they will scrape it, and then they would like put it baby oil or some sort of other binder. They have maybe mouthwash or something that they squeeze a rubbing alcohol pad and get the alcohol, but then they uh, find a container to keep it in. Um, the needles are homemade a lot of times. They'll find a wire, a staple or a paper clip, and they sharpen it on the cement or whatever. And sometimes they will find tattoo guns, but sometimes it's just an old fashioned technique where they just tap the needle. They'll ink up an area and they'll just tap the needle and the surface, and they always have lookout. The minute you go and do your 20-minute, 15-minute round, they'll holler, to tell them to, stop the activity.
Isn't the
But
signal usually them saying your name or something? Or
oh yeah,
whatever your nickname is?
when I first started and they didn't know me, they would just say some peanut butter or something like that. But then after um, the population got to know me, one time they said I looked like Family Guy, and someone would say Family Guy. And when I walk into the bed area or the day room, and then one time it was Drew Carey, but it as comical, I was like, I knew what was going on, so I tried to expedite and try and catch people. But
So that you're talking about, that's somebody just being creative, finding a staple, finding a paper clip on your paperwork and keeping it, whatever, and then turning it, burning something, creating, like you said, the soot, and then finding a binder to mix it with, and that becomes basically the ink with that, and then manually doing it. But you said you
yes,
found tattoo guns. How the hell would
yeah.
a tattoo
Well,
gun get in a prison?
they're homemade. They're not real tattoo. The like a lot of prisons have work assignments, and some of them have like auto body, and some of them have where they will find a broken motor from a rearview mirror, and they modify it so it vibrates.
But still, all that's creative. All that is them creating, taking what they can find and doing it, right? If they could apply that somewhere else, they may not be there.
They take the motor out of the electric razor and they would modify it, put like maybe a paper clip or some wire so it would go up and down, and that would be the tattoo gun. We just have to be on our toes, and if they have a electric razor, make sure it's fully intact so that we knew they weren't making tattoo guns. But they had auto body and auto mechanics, and sometimes they would take the mirror, the the little motor from the rear view mirrors on the side mirrors, and it's the same thing. They would modify those little motors and make a gyrating needle, and they would have take razors as conductors. They'd break razors and use them with their batteries. So and they'd find tape from or plastic to keep it all wrapped up from the food services. They're very creative.
Yeah,
They're
damn, an
yeah.
engineering firm needs to hire these
I
guys and tell
know.
them to do
It,
something productive.
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
if they use, I mean, they usually in an open population, they usually know somebody working food services or maintenance, and and they have their networks, and
Yeah.
they will get their supplies. They know what they need, and they'll get their supplies, and then they would, if you get me a roll of electrical tape, I'll get you something. I can make you a tattoo or something.
Is there a lot of
Uh,
corruption, Will? Not naming any names, not naming any facilities, nothing like that. But is there a lot of corruption in that arena? I could see how somebody who's not going to do it as a career could fall into the trap of being
well,
a mule.
Yeah, there you do have that. You can't filter everything out. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've come across um, people that try to make a little bit more money for themselves, and they're not into it for a career, but they're taking a big chance because some people have ended up being locked up on the other side.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so
Well, let's talk about drugs because that's the most appalling thing. Jeff, you can ask the question, but for the general public, it is really mind-boggling how a single drug can get in a prison if we're watching these fellas and ladies. Um, and if you're I would imagine the punishment would be pretty heavy if you were to caught bringing drugs into a prison.
yeah,
Um, so tell us, or Jeff, you ask it how you want to, because I know you had this question too, but um, and we'll go from
Well,
there.
my question, yeah, is basically, all right, how do drugs enter into the prison? That's basically the simplest way to ask this question. And so how does that take place?
you've got job details number one, and they have drops. At their job details, maybe someone's mowing the grass, and somebody they know uh, owe them a favor, and they might drop off drugs outside, and then they will hide them on their persons, and they could even swallow them. There was a case one time, personally, where a guy got a drop and he swallowed some latex gloves with drugs in them, and the tower had seen him do it, so they put him in a dry cell. And as officers, we had to go through his feces to get those drugs, and that was a task that supervisors, well, we have to. It's part of your job.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
yeah,
That's where that's where you
uh,
want some seniority.
yeah,
You
yeah.
want some seniority to pass that on.
But the not all prisons things come over the fence. They get thrown over the fence, um, because not all prisons are one big building. And you got rec yards, and like you said, you've got mowing details or uh, details outside. You got food services, that they can come in with food items. Um, Trafficking by visitors, they'll put something in their mouth, and they're allowed. They used to be. There's a big question. Some people are not allowed to have any kind of contact with the um, outside population, but they used to be at the beginning of the visit. They were allowed to kiss, and people would kiss them and have something in their mouth, uh, and they would swallow it or just kind of put it in between their cheek and gum.
What's the craziest thing you've seen as far as drugs being delivered?
I've seen all of it. I've seen them coming. One time I was walking from the supervisor's building, control building, to the dorm, and there was a trash bag, a small trash bag just by the walk. And so I said, "What's this doing here?" And I picked it up, and it was a whole bunch of tobacco. And so I
mm,
just turned around and went back to the supervisor's building, and I have no idea how that trash bag got put there. I think somebody left it in the custody building, and somebody was seen me coming and dropped it because he didn't want to get caught with it. But it was just sitting there next to the walk out of place, and I like that. That doesn't look right.
If you were in charge, Will, if you were in charge of it, how could you stop it? Could you stop
No,
drugs coming
no,
in?
you can't. You can't stop it.
You
There's too
can't?
many.
It's that
There's
futile?
Yeah. There's too many Well, it's gotten so bad.
I don't care who's
There.
addicted to what. I mean, you're
Yeah.
addicted, you're in prison, tough shit.
Well, we have cleaning supplies, and they make their own. Try to make their own out of the cleaning supplies. They will take insect spray and put it on toilet paper, and then they'd smoke it after it dried out. It's
So unless
stuff
you're
like
in
that.
maximum security where you got mass murderers that are double handcuffed and ankle bracelets, unless you're in that facility, if you're in some other general facility, you probably have some access to stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, and then you got your bad staff.
Right.
That's that.
That's what
Yeah,
I was
tell
going
us
to say.
more.
Is the corruption. There's got to be one hand greases another, and I'll turn away as you get your drugs and stuff like that. So there is a lot of that going on too.
Well, yeah, there is. A lot of people have lost their jobs and because of that. Yeah.
I've always been an advocate of, I hate the fact that when somebody commits a crime, and I don't care how whatever level of crime, I don't care whatever the punishment is. First of all, make the punishment fit the crime. You got to do that. If you don't do that, then you just get the system we have. But make the punishment fit the crime. But after somebody serves their punishment and serves it cleanly, I don't think it should follow them. And, Jeff, how many times have you and I had the conversation that I'm the 70-year believer? I believe we're all given 70 years. If you go earlier than that, you got cheated, or God had a purpose for you. Or if you get more than 70, then you're living on borrowed time. But I've always thought that
I'm sorry.
the penal system, people need to serve their sentence, and then when it is served, their debt for that crime is done. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to follow them to their next employer. Their employers shouldn't be able to access it. I'm sorry if you're I was a business owner. So yeah, I would love to know what Jeff's every piece of Jeff's history.
Just a minute.
Just so I can make a good hire. I've always thought that when you're sentenced to prison, that the only way that our society can go forward and not imprison every person in the population is that once you serve your sentence, it should be over. So make the sentence match the crime. And then once you served your sentence, you're back. You're back. You're one of us. And you're back in society. And our society wants to punish you for the rest of your life. And you know how many, I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to incriminate myself, but do you know if I would have been caught for just half the shit I did as a teenager, there's no part of my life that would have been the same. Everybody would have thought I was the crookedest, corruptest, most demented. I mean, I didn't do anything. I didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But you understand what I mean. I had a little bit and drove a little. I drank a little bit and drove a little bit as a teenager. But I would have been scarred for life in today's society. They pick you up for a DUI and it follows you the rest of your life. And I almost want to run for politics, to be a politician, to get that. Once you serve your sentence, let it go. Let it go. We're all human. Let it go. Now, if make it fit the crime, I'm saying that. But damn, these kids don't have a chance with an employer, a serious employer that's got big money to offer you, and to look into your background and to find, oh, you had a DUI, at 18, you're a bad person. No, if you had a DUI and you killed a family of 6 in a van, you're going to be in prison the rest of your life. So that's going to follow you for that. But a DUI or many other things, stealing a pack of gum when you're 7, it doesn't need to follow you the rest of your life. And I think our society, and Jeff, please chime in with your thoughts, and Will, you too. But I really think our society misses the mark on that. I don't need to, especially they get into these sexual crimes, and every time I see, because every time I open up YouTube, I have to, how did that picture get on my list of, like, how you can go see the football game highlights, you can go see the what's trending, and then there's this psychotic porn thing on your list, and uh every time I hear somebody in Kokomo, Indiana, some guy that gets arrested for having porn on his computer, I'm thinking, is that guy guilty? Is he guilty or not? I mean, was it there as because it linked to something that, you know, whatever. And so, but I've always been an advocate of when somebody gets sentenced to a period of punishment, let it go after it's done. You sentenced them to that. You said that's what it was worth. They served it. Now let them go back to be able to get a job like the rest of us and be productive like the rest of us. But we don't do that. We hold it over their head the rest of their life. And I can see how people become career criminals. If your society is not going to accept you even after you serve your punishment, what other choice do you have? What do you think, Jeff?
I agree, especially with petty crimes like theft, DUIs, as long as you don't kill anybody. DUIs, petty crimes should not follow you around. Speeding tickets,
It affects
crimes like
everything in your
that.
life, insurance
Right,
cost,
right,
everything.
yeah. But the other crimes like, uh, child porn, pedophilia, rape, things like that. If you're in there for 5, 6 years and you come back out, we're all humans. I don't know if urges like that could be trained out of you. So,
But that's if the punishment's not correct.
right, that
I say,
you're correct
if
about
you
that.
as a
Right,
society think rape is worth life, then give them life.
right, yeah,
If rape is worth death, give them death. If rape is worth 15, 20 years, whatever, but you're right. The way our system is, rape could be 2 months.
right. Especially
Eh,
nowadays,
yes.
because
Yes.
it's not blanket. It's very politicized nowadays, and we
Yeah.
could see people that go out and are caught with gun crimes and don't do a day in jail. So until we get that all straightened out, I mean, it's gonna follow you right now, but it
Yeah.
shouldn't. If I get caught for like stealing a pack of cigarettes or something like that, that shouldn't follow me around when I'm going for a job, because then all of a sudden nobody wants you. Like you said, you just go back to trying to make money, trying to survive, so you become a career criminal.
Do you think your employer needs to know about your legal history? I don't.
Right.
I don't. Beforehand, maybe, if they have access to that. But after you're an employee, I mean, they don't need to know all that
If it's
unless
going
the
to
court releases it. What's that?
affect the job, if they're going to be involved in money and their crime is theft, you know,
Right.
they're going to be tempted. But you're right. There's a lot of times that the time doesn't equal the crime, and it depends on the state. You've got like a couple years of probation after you get out. Even once in they're you're on the term is you're on the books, you know, so
Yeah.
you're on the
Yeah.
books for
And I
quite a
hate
bit.
that. I hate that for the young people, especially the young people that do stuff. You're young and dumb. You do something stupid, run from the police. That doesn't need to chase you for the rest of your life. That doesn't make you a career run from the police person. It doesn't do that. At 17, you're scared. You think you can get away. You give it a shot. You get caught.
Or
Whatever.
I
But
know ignorance
go ahead.
ignorance isn't the law, but that really is a problem. People don't realize what the law is and how much time they're going to do, and so they're they do it.
A couple episodes ago, Will, we talked about finding a genie bottle, and if you became a genie, what would you do, kind of thing. And what I would do, one thing I would really love to do is walk into a prison and just have them light up if they're guilty, just to know. And do you think, with your experience, over your career, did you know who was mostly guilty and maybe not so
Well,
much?
there in 35 years, there was only one out of probably over a million that was found not to be guilty.
Really?
Wow.
Really?
All right. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, Will had I heard this story in a roundabout way. Will, tell me about your Mexico experience. Well, you mentioned you worked down in Texas. You weren't in a prison in Texas, right?
No.
You were a teacher or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think at that time I was doing a contract.
Yeah, go ahead. Just tell the story.
I was working for some complexes with general maintenance, but we were down in South Texas, Brownsville, and there was a bar that was just a garage with garage doors, and it was at the southmost tip of Padre Island, and it was called Dolphin Cove. And we used to go over there, and we used to open oysters and drink beer. And we went over there one time, and there was a limousine right in the parking lot, and there is a person, of pretty good statue there sitting at the bar, and I went I went to sit at the bar, and I ordered a beer and got some oysters, and we were watching people fish and watching people set up lawn chairs, and they were having a lot of problems, and we we kind of laughed about it, and uh, he said a few English words to me, and I tried to understand, and and said some Spanish to him, but it's like we were like sitting right next to each other, and then he got up and left, and the bartender goes, "Did you know who that was?" He said, he goes, "That was one of the people of the Mexican mafia." He was like one of the top leaders of the Mexican mafia. He said that's a El Chapo, and so I was like,
So
well, at the time I didn't know who in the heck he was. Of
Right.
course, he wasn't in jail yet or anything at that time. He was just running back and forth, whatever, doing in South Texas and Mexico. But I was like, later on,
So
I found out
you had lunch
who it
with El
was.
Chapo. You
Yeah.
had lunch with El Chapo.
Wow.
That's cool.
So
That's incredible.
So, Will, what were during your career, if you could change things, what would you change, and what advice? I mean, everybody's going to see this story, and the reason we do this is to capture your story, for people around you and just people in general that that you don't sit down and tell this stuff to every day. Uh, what would you like to change, or what did you see that was really a foul, or what do you think could be done to improve things?
I would like to see everybody do what is expected of them, and be truthful and honest, and just make an honest wage. If you do your job and everybody does their job, the system's going to work. But if you try to get ahead and try to do something that's corrupt, you're going to hurt everybody. And that's I used to hate that. But um, if everybody just did their part and put their time in, you know, the system works.
Let me ask you this: marijuana is a big deal. and like I said, this goes back to my make the punishment fit the crime. If marijuana, if we think marijuana is bad, make 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, whatever. Not a year, 6 months, whatever. Make that the crime for marijuana. All right, but that's popular now. That's a popular. How many people? Did you see a lot of people in prison for marijuana charges?
Oh yeah, there was a lot.
Do you think they were? Do you think they were criminal? I
They
have my
were.
opinion. I'm not going to say it, but I'm just saying. Um, do you think those people belonged in prison?
Yeah, well, they knew the crime. Uh, it was illegal to smoke or sell,
Right. I agree. I agree.
and so they knew the consequences, and they took the gamble.
But don't you think it
So
would be better if there was a set penalty for we don't as a society endorse marijuana use, right? Penalty 1 year if you get caught using it, 2 years if you get caught dealing it, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. But wouldn't it be better if that was just cut and dry instead of trying to make all these social statements about somebody that smoked pot or dealt pot, got caught selling pot? I mean, don't you think that would work better than all this variable stuff about some people get 20 years for pot.
yeah,
Some people get parole
the,
for pot.
back in the day, if you had a certain amount and you were selling it, yeah, they would throw the book at you. You're right.
Right.
And now most places it's illegal.
Now you got to
Um,
watch what you drink. It's in drinks.
oh yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
it depends
yeah,
on your job.
we went to the beach the other day and had to watch it.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, it gets a little confusing because isn't marijuana still federally illegal?
Yeah, federally, I'm pretty sure it is.
Right.
Uh,
But then some states like Colorado, they're like, all right, the feds call it illegal, but it's legal in Colorado. So, I mean, all these different states that legalize it and the federal government still says it's illegal. The law gets very confusing.
Not only that, Jeff, the people that throw it out, it eliminates my pain.
Right.
I really get tired of hearing it, but if it if it does, I can see their point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've had like neck and back pain in the past. If that eliminated your pain, let's just say it
Mm-hmm.
did, took it away, what would you do as a citizen? If that took, but it's illegal where you're at. Believe me, I'm not an advocate of marijuana usage and people driving on the same road with me that have smoked marijuana. I think it's a very paralyzing drug. I think it does more harm than good. But what about those cases where, people are adamant about it, Jeff, that
Oh,
it
I
takes the
understand
pain,
that.
that it takes the pain away.
And
What do you
I do
do?
believe that it does. All right. I believe that they've modified a lot of marijuana to where you get the healing benefits of it and not the same high that you get from street marijuana. Now, medical marijuana in places are legal, but you got to have the medical marijuana card. But like I said, the law, when it's a federal crime, but states okay it, and then you got states that are still prosecuting that marijuana possession, except they okay the medical marijuana use. I mean, what do you do? It
Well,
gets
what do you
very
do? If it eliminates your pain that you have,
right. Okay.
but you couldn't do our job on marijuana.
No, no.
There's no way in hell you could do our job.
Right. Correct. So I'd have to stay away from that. That's why they do, you know, drug screening and stuff like that. But I know there are strains out there, and anybody out there watching, if you if you know the strains of medical marijuana that don't get you high, leave a comment below. But I know they cultivated it and tailor made it genetically where it doesn't get you high, but it still takes away the pain. So, can I do my job on that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that would be
Right.
awesome. It'd be like curing
Yeah,
cancer. I mean, yeah, let's
I
do
know.
it.
And it'd be better than pharmaceuticals.
Will, did you see any sad cases during your career to where you're like, you were dumb? You don't have to be here, but you are because of you were ignorant for 10 seconds. Did you see a lot of that?
Yeah. There was, people, said they had an emergency and were drinking, and they they know they shouldn't have got in the car, but they end up getting in the car to take their daughter to the hospital or whatever, and then there was fatalities or accidents, and they would be locked up. Yeah, it sometimes it just takes a few seconds, change your life. You
Did you
you got
see
you got you got to think.
did you
Yeah.
see did you see any just batshit crazy ones that were irredeemable? They weren't going to be rehabilitated? Do you believe in rehabilitation? That's a question. Do you believe in rehabilitation? Put them in there, they'll get better, and send them back out. They're not going to get better if you put the ball and chain around their neck and they drag their criminal history the rest of their life. They're not going to get better. But that being not done, let's just say, did you see some that were not, they weren't going to be rehabilitated?
Well, I've seen a lot, uh, because they're just trying to. They're not trying to better themselves. They're just trying to do their time, do the time
Well,
the
I
easiest
can
way they
understand
can.
that if they can go
And
on and be good people afterwards. Do your
yeah,
time
but
and get the
no,
hell
there's
out.
most of the time. Well, when I was at a reentry facility, the guys, you know, we thought that the reentry facility, if we give them the needs, if we give them a job and we got their license back for them, then the less chance of them recommitting would be better. Well, that didn't happen. We did everything we could to make them better. We put them in an environment where they had networks, but they still went out and committed crimes, and they committed at a higher rate than the people just getting that didn't have that um, process, that didn't get their license before they got out, had a job before they got out, and that's just
Do you
we
think
couldn't
our
figure it
prison
out.
system works?
It keeps it keeps society safe. So
Which is, I guess, the
Yeah,
number one intent.
yeah, there's some people that I was so glad that are locked up
yeah, I'm
because of
sure.
their attitude.
Yeah,
So
we had a show. It was our last show. We talked about cults and how people have an innate need to belong to something. So my question is, have you? Because some people go out there and they join gangs. All right, and they end up in the prison system. Have you had people that joined gangs, came into the prison system, and like, hey, I need to get out of this gang? Is there a way for them to get out of a gang in prison?
there is, and it has happened, but it's extremely difficult.
Is it?
They usually end up in the medical unit uh, once they deny their affiliation. Uh, that there's such a following in that gang, and there's power in numbers, and they don't want their numbers to fall.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
Have you ever guarded any celebrities and were they treated differently? And I say this with the caveat, don't say any names, but you can say world champion of the world. uh, and so everybody knows what you're talking about, but don't mention any names and don't mention any places or things
For the
or
most part,
any accusations. But do they get treated differently? Do celebrities get treated different in prison?
for the most part, no, they don't. But because they're celebrities and because of their financial status, you got uh people that take advantage of them and the system.
Well,
So
let's just say you have the heavyweight champion of the world somewhere around you. Does his posse come with him to prison?
uh no, that he well they have he has a mixed bag. Yeah, you have people that hate him because he had it made and threw it all away, and then you got the people that want to follow him and be his friend because it might be their doorway to staying out of prison. So, and so you had both, you know, um, and it was very lucrative for a couple of his uh, co-inmates, and then you had some that you know were just corrupt, and they were always corrupt, and then end up not so good.
Tell me a little bit about communication in the, the more secure places. How do they communicate with each other within the secure areas? Because I have seen some shows where they were showing how.
Well,
Go ahead.
they have kites, which what it is they like dental floss and a note, and they'll sling it to the guy in the next cell under the door or the bars, and then he'll have instructions for them to send it some to the next cell, and so they kind of respect each other and pass notes like that. Um, and then somehow food service people might come and they'll uh, leave it on their tray so it gets out in the population. And they might leave phone numbers, might leave information on it.
Is a
It
prison full of contractors like food service, lawn
it's
care? Is it full of
yeah, there's
contractors, or are they all like state employees? And are you
the
guys unionized?
no
Are prison guards unionized? Are state, I guess,
every
state
state's different.
employees?
Every state's different.
Okay,
Uh, so
but is
at
there a
one
lot of
time,
contractors working in a prison?
yeah, because it pays off for the politics, and so they approve it. Um, it's a money. It's a way to make money. Prison's a big business, and it also uh, cuts down on costs. So like uh, we had our medical unit was contracted out. Uh, Once they got rid of the unions, then they had food services contracted out, and it does because it uh, lowers staffing costs and it lowers a lot of legal fees. But the contracts are all over the place. You know,
As
I know at
as
one time
you
it was all. When I first started, everything was run by state. We were a self-sufficient entity throughout the state. They canned their own goods. They farmed their own goods. It was just like we had their own power plant, had their own water towers. It was like we didn't need anybody. The prison stood alone.
I saw
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption, Will. I know the farming corruption going on. Uh, the but as you became close to retirement, did you start getting worried that one false charge could basically kill your pension?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That
Really?
well, if you mess up and you're fired, then it's just like you throw it all away.
I bet that was some
All the
tentative times as you got closer to retirement that, I mean, you're a young man, you retired early, but I can imagine your last year walking on
I
eggshells.
I've had some coworkers that were asked to retire, because they didn't follow the rules. Maybe they got upset and pushed the envelope, and maybe did something to a inmate that shouldn't have been done, and were saying, hey, if you don't retire, you're going to get fired and lose
Yeah.
everything.
Has
So
anybody ever escaped from you? Has anybody ever
no,
got away?
no, I have no
No?
escapes.
Getting close to retirement, I mean, all throughout your career, have you had death threats to you and your family from inmates?
You know what? You um, it's more of legal threats. You know,
Oh, okay.
and that they say, hey, I'm going to sue you. If you do anything, or and like, well, I don't think you can sue me because I'm just following policy and procedure. But they think that
Right.
they're going to
Okay.
they're going to make money off of you. That. But side note, I don't know why my phone says I'm almost out of power, but I am. I've been. That's
All
you
right.
probably see me messing uh with my
All
power
Gotcha.
right. Well,
cord, but
we're good,
um
but at some part in your history, you transported prisoners across state lines and things, right? And do you see all the are you out of power, Will? Are you still there? You're frozen. Hook up your power.
Uh-oh.
We may have lost him there, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
We'll give
We'll
him
edit
some
this
time.
part out. See if he comes back.
Right.
What do you think so far?
I think there's a lot of politics involved in prison. Uh,
Ask him
you
about
know,
it.
who owns the prison, who runs this prison and that prison. Well, I guess he's completely gone.
I was saying about you used to transport prisoners. That was a lot of your later days that the job you did. And I'm always looking, I see these news reels of prisoner got away at the drive-through at Taco Bell or prisoner just opened up the door and left. What would you do if that was you? I mean, first of all, I know you being the superior guardian that you are, it would never happen. But what the hell? Prisoner escapes at Burger King at the drive-through. I know you've seen the stories, and I know
yeah,
you used to do that work. You used to come down here in our neck of the woods in Florida. So, how does that happen, and what's the problem? And what would happen to you?
you would definitely be disciplined, and
Well,
and
like I
I,
remember I referenced the Marine Corps chasing when we chased a prisoner, somebody from our unit.
uh,
I chased two guys that were dealing cocaine. They were manufacturing cocaine out of their military housing on base. And they chose, just a real quick summary of it, they chose one captain, the judge to determine their destiny instead of a jury trial, because you get a pick. You can have an officer listen to your story and judge you, or you could have a jury of your peers, which I recommend highly after what I saw. They did away with the jury. They had this one captain determine was the judge. They went and did all their courtroom stuff. They were both sentenced to 20 years, and they were 18 freaking years old.
well, that's terrible.
And they were manufacturing cocaine out of family housing on base. They got family housing on base, brought their wives down, got everything legalized, sent their wives home, and they were manufacturing cocaine, and that's what they got arrested for. And but as a chaser, If you lose them, you serve their sentence till they're found.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so
crazy.
there was incentive to buckle their ass up and get them to where they need to be. But so when, yeah, how does that happen? How does somebody transporting a prisoner lose them at Burger King?
Well, they probably didn't have the restraints on tight because they would think that, you know, they were being human. But as long as you're following policy and procedures, you shouldn't have any problems. But the thing is, you have to have all the restraints a- as tight as you can get them without restricting blood flow. And then if they happen to escape, you got to be ready to use deadly force. You got to protect society. And um, I guess if someone escapes, they might see somebody as he's not going to shoot me, or he's not going. I, I'm I'm going to get away from this guy.
Do you talk to them when you're riding in the van? Do you chit chat with them?
A little bit, yeah. Well, they got to tell us, if they got to use the restroom. They and then we try to make arrangements to stop at a secure facility. And if we're traveling, cross country, we got to provide them food. So we we go to a drive-through and get very minimal amounts of food to sustain their life. Uh, but the thing is, the policy and procedure. If they got the restraints on correctly, and they're following all the precautionary techniques, you're not going to have a problem. But the it's there. I'm always when I was driving, you're always wondering, when there's a slowdown in traffic, is 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 there somebody out to get me, or is there out trying to get him? Uh, your mind is always on safety.
Did you ever work the death row area?
Uh, no,
Okay.
um, I never did.
All right.
Uh,
Seeing the people that you have watched over all these years, um, do you believe in the capital punishment?
as far as financial, cause it sure costs a lot, and this person who has life, he's never going to do it. He may write a book or something, but he's never going to do anything for society. And it you hate to say it, but you know it's going to save millions of dollars, and
I
the
understand.
taxpayers that could go uh, to other means of people that are in need.
Well, thanks, Will. We appreciate the stories. Anything else you want to add? Any odd stories or anything that we didn't ask about that might be interesting?
Uh, no, we can do this another night. I know once you edit it and stuff, if you need more information, this is my first run, so it's
Okay, that
I,
works.
I'm
Well,
it's
we
like
may
I
bring you
haven't had
back if we talk
practice.
about. We might bring you back if we talk about it again. And we do roundtables every now and then, so
Right.
stay tuned.
Okay,
Yep.
all right,
Will, thank
All
you
right.
very much for coming on.
all
Thanks,
right.
Will.
Thank you for watching Buried Stories. If you enjoyed our show, please leave a comment below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and if you got a story that you'd like to share with myself and Wendell, email me at buriedstories74@gmail.com. Until next time, have a good one.